Welcome back. We're talking with Whitney French, the executive director of the Farnsworth House. And so far we've gotten to 1951, the completion of the house, the simplicity, and how the simplicity kind of overshadows the design.
It is a remarkably simple appearance. It's certainly an incredibly complex structure, and Mies was admired for the level of detail that he managed in this. In fact, most architects are really stunned at what kind of man he must have been to get the contractors to perform these feats for him on this structure, because it is truly remarkably constructed.
So upon completion in 1951, Edith Farnsworth used the vacation home as a retreat. And how long was she a summer resident? Or
well, you know, there is a tragic little twist to the story that is relevant in the timeline in history, and that is that the result of the project ended in a lawsuit. The lawsuit, which was held at the Kendall County Courthouse from 1951 till about 1956, involved Ludwig Mies van der Rohe's office having to sue Dr. Farnsworth for a balance of fees owed them. It was, if you'll recall, kind of the McCarthy era, and there was a lot, Mies van der Rohe being a German architect, there was a lot of dissension and a lot of accusations and some slander in the press enacted by Dr. Farnsworth about this communist architect. Certainly none of it was true. She acted as though the house were completely unlivable, but then proceeded to weekend there almost every weekend for 20 years. And having spoken of what a brilliant woman she was, it's, I think, quite obvious that she enjoyed the place, or she wouldn't have repetitively gone there. She wrote eloquently in journals that are kept at the Newberry Library in Chicago about her experience there for 20 years and how she did enjoy the place. But she had another lawsuit in the house, and that was in 1967 when the county, through the process of condemnation and eminent domain, took 2 acres of land to construct the Fox River Drive Bridge, which now resides almost in the side yard of the house and really disrupts the privacy. A lot of our visitors say, well, I've seen it from the road, right. And a lot of residents have gone by and seen it from the road, but in the day that she constructed it, you couldn't. Well, that was too disturbing to her privacy, and so she put the house on the market, came to the attention of a modern home collector by the name of Lord Peter Palumbo, a British citizen who was collecting great structures at the time, who bought it from her and then made arrangements for her to be the recipient of a scholarship and helped her retire to Italy for the remainder of her years, where she translated Italian poetry. She passed away in 1978. Lord Palumbo maintained the house until putting it up for auction in 2003. He was an excellent steward, and we owe him a debt of gratitude for that service.
And so then it became no longer a public residence, but a showcase.
Correct. The preservationists sprang into action because whenever a project or a property of this value is put out into the public domain and private buyers can get their hands on it, it's at risk. And one of the risks for the Farnsworth House was that it could be moved. It would have been a tragic loss for Illinois and for Plano, and we are staunch believers that the Farnsworth House is intimately connected to the site that it sits on. And so they sprung into action, and at the cost of $7.5 million, secured it at an auction in December of 2003.
I'm going to back up a little bit, because one of the things that makes the house so attractive is the furnishings. And so it was a package deal. It wasn't like she went shopping and bought furniture that wasn't well suited. So let's include a little bit of that story, because the house was sold furnished.
The house was sold furnished, but they were Peter Palumbo's furnishings. Dr. Farnsworth did initially lead Mies to believe that she would be purchasing additional furniture, but because their relationship went sour towards the end of the project, she furnished it with cast-offs from her apartment, her condominium in Chicago. The house has always had a tragic tale of flooding. It's built a foot above the 100-year floodplain, the living level, and it's built of materials that most often can withstand the onslaught of the occasional flood. But that flood in that area has reached over the 100-year floodplain about once every 10 years for the last 60. So we've suffered a number of floods. She recognized that anything she put in the house was at risk, and so furnished it with with hand-me-downs from her condo instead. What we have now, though, is a collection of furniture designed by the architect himself, which I think is astounding. One of the things that's difficult to produce on a tour is to constantly remind people or constantly evoke in people the idea that this was 1951. And all of the furniture in the house predates 1930. And yet this home shows as though it was built 2 years ago. It's really remarkable that an architect can so consistently design things that have such a timeless quality to them.
So the furnishings that stayed with the house were from Lord Palumbo?
Correct.
Okay. So once it became part of a treasure, if you will, what did it take to get it ready to show to the public?
Well, the National Trust for Historic Preservation was one of the organizations helping in the effort to secure the house. They took ownership of the house. They own 28 additional sites around the country that are varying styles and materials that kind of showcase preservation in the U.S. So they were well prepared and well equipped to help establish a house museum and open the house to the public. It is kind of a natural outcome because despite the fact that it was privately owned, both of the owners complained constantly that there were trespassers on the property. We call them the architectural paparazzi because they come with their cameras and they get access by whatever means they can, scaling our security systems and making their way onto the property. And it just seems natural to keep it open and share this treasure with the legion of fans that admire this house so much. It is a piece of architecture studied in nearly every architectural program in the entire world. And so, therefore, every architect has at least in some point in their career studied this residence. So it's an amazingly popular piece of architecture amongst the architect and design set.
So you don't necessarily need to be a student of Mies van der Rohe, just of great architecture.
Yes, exactly, a student of architecture in any way. And I think that it is such a showcase and such a piece that's so highly regarded for what it managed to accomplish in its day that even architects who have incredibly high expectations when they come to visit, their expectations are exceeded. Because until you experience the space and become one with the scale of the property and see it in person, even architects who've studied it and built models of it and redrawn it for class assignments are amazed
Once they're actually...
when they get on the property.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about the Farnsworth House, Brad Pitt, Kenny Chesney, and how they're all related.
All right.
Because I'm sure you have some great stories to tell. Don't go away, but we'll be back right after this.